patriotism, faith, national unity, education, fiscal responsibility, civility, the values that define America. Fascinating stories and talks from America-loving patriots dedicated to preserving freedom, opportunity, and justice. Welcome to the Friends and Fellow Citizens podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 78. This is part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Elida Dakoli. The part 1 has just been an amazing testimony from our special guest this week. If you haven't already listened to part 1, please listen to that first. The link to part 1 is down in the show notes below. I hope you will enjoy this part 2 as we continue on with her story growing up in communist Albania and how her journey to America has not only changed her, but have changed the lives of so many across the U.S. and across the world. I hope you enjoy part 2. Well, it's just the impeccable work ethic, the brilliance of your family is just it's really remarkable, and no doubt that I think that brilliance and work ethic certainly passed on to you because it's just such a touching story. And if I may, I want to ask you now about your interest in music and also your journey to the United States. Seemed like must have been such a whirlwind journey to go from that part of the world, that society, to a place like the United States.
It is, and life is amazing. I'm very thankful for the opportunities that were given to me, and I don't take anything for granted. I appreciate, and I'm very proud of what I have achieved, and my family especially that I have. But no, it has not been easy. It has not been easy for many reasons. The number one is that Albania, once that went was a very poor country once that communism went down. Literally, when communism went down, there was no food there. People were leaving the country, and it was just a disaster everywhere. My father was asked then, once that communism went down, to become one of the leaders of the opposite party, which is the Democratic Party. So they had the Socialists and the Democrats. The Socialists changed their name from Communist to Socialist Party. Basically, we're the same people. And just growing up is not, even though communism went down, I was not allowed to even walk on the streets alone because they were scared that someone would kidnap me, because my father now was in this position. And also, when you were isolated for so long and you have, now it's a free country, supposedly, many of the younger generation, like the 18, 20, 25-year-old, went crazy. They went in Italy, making a little money, and came back, and they acted like they had the world, and that was very tough especially for the girls and for everyone. My brother would not walk alone either in the streets. We were very often threatened. I remember in 1997, where the civil, what happened in Albania. I'm sure you might know about it, with the pyramids. The people would go to my father and tell him, "You are going to end up having the same fortune as your father. Basically, you are going to die in prison, just like your father. We are going to put you there." The communists will go behind his back and start telling him all of that, and then keep walking. And so we were scared for our lives, to tell you the truth, because now my father was part of this new party that wanted to do some good or make a change. And we were constantly threatened and I was scared. I was scared that they would take my father away. I was scared that I would live without a father, without family members. And that was a story of its own. But they were afraid that something would happen to me or my brother. So we were always accompanied. We were never left alone. With that in mind, once that high school ended, of course, I worked very hard. I got accepted at the university. The hopes for me during communism to be as a pianist in university was absolutely impossible. Let me go back by saying that during communism, you were not allowed to have a car. You were not allowed to have a private car, basically your own car. You were not allowed to have a piano at home. So I had to go to school to study. Of course, there was a certain time, and for me, they gave me the worst possible times. When I was third grade, finally a spot was open for me to practice. And my parents would wake me up at 5 a.m., get me dressed, and I was at school at 6 and practice there until 7:15, and then go to class. Of course, my father would drop me off at school, and he would go to work. He worked in the village, so he had a long way to go. That's a different story. But and then once that a spot was opened in the afternoon, we had the hardest time. Like people that had the practice time before me, that would just take off the light bulbs, take just all kinds of stuff, just because we would not be able to practice. And one time, my father and I. So, okay, we said there is no electricity in this room, so we left, right? Another day without practice. And went to my maternal grandmother's house. Then going back, my father said, okay, well, it's still your time to practice. Let's go and see, maybe the electricity is back. So we went and see, there was light, and we went upstairs in the room. We saw the window from the outside that there was light. We went upstairs and someone else was practicing. And that's when we realized that, they were sabotaging our practice time. So my father was carrying light bulbs, light fixtures, you name it, with them. Oftentimes, he asked one of his electrician friends to be to be on guard because we might go and there was no phones, of course. So my father would walk at his house and have him come and try to walk fast to come and fix whatever was wrong so I could go and practice. So I mean, the sacrifices that my parents have made for me to just somehow make it is just unbelievable. Wow. And of course, like I said, there were no cars that we could drive. It was just walking everywhere. My father had a bike, and that's where I would be. He would take me in his bike to school or to the practice, whether it was raining, whether it was hot, whether it was windy. Dura sits by the sea, so there was quite often very windy. It's quite windy in the city. So but somehow we survived. We made it, and once that communism went down, things became a little easier. I was able to finally have a piano and practice at home, and I made it. Went to college. Once that I graduated college, my piano professor actually asked me what I was going to do once that I graduated. And I said, I would love to work in this university. There's so much to do. I mean, it was the only university of music in Albania. And she said, I think that could be possible. And so that's how it all started. She suggested I go to Vienna, give me the address. She said, why don't you apply for some master classes there? It would be a good experience, and we need that here. I said, sure. So I applied, and then I went to American Airlines, and I literally asked, can I have a sponsorship for the flight there? And they said, come back in 2 weeks. I remember that. I'm like, oh, who is going to give this to me? Anyway, I went back in 2 weeks. I thought, do I want to go back there? It was so embarrassing to even ask the first time around. But anyway, I went back and they said, well, we'll give you one of the flights. So 50% of the flight is paid from Austrian Airlines. And I was so surprised. And of course, I applied to another foundation, Pro Helvetia. Pro Helvetia was quite big in the arts, helping the arts back then. I had a concert that I created, and it was very successful. So they remembered me. And when I went and asked for a grant for this, they supported it, which was amazing. and and so, yes, that's how it all started. So I went to Vienna. A professor heard me there during the lessons and so on. And in Austria, the University of Music there. When I arrived back, she gave me her card and she said, write back to me once it arrived in Albania. And I did write her. I said, hope you made it back. She was this professor. Let me define. She was this professor taught during the summertime at the University of Music in Vienna. However, during the regular semester, she taught at Baylor University in Waco. And so when she came to the United States and school started in Albania, and I was working in university at that time, so I just started working in university. I sent her an email saying, I hope you made it back to the United States okay, and everything is well, and yes, I'd love to keep in touch with you, something like that, to those terms, basically. And she said, I've been thinking about you. What did you think about, what do you feel about coming to study in the United States? And I was like, okay, how do we do that? And, that's how it all went. And, of course, that was a story of its own, because during that time in Albania, you couldn't in order to study at an American university, the number one step would be to pass the TOEFL test, which is an English test. So once that I arrived in the United States, everything was different. It was a culture shock. It was a learning experience for me. I was in a different, just remembering how the students will get out of the class in flip-flops. I'm like, how is it possible if someone goes to school in flip-flops or in shorts? Just these little things. And then in class, the communication with the professors, how freely the students were communicating with the professor. To me, it was very bizarre, because usually you didn't, the professor would not ask for your opinion, just tell you how give you the lecture, and you were supposed to have the lecture prepared, even in university. Of course, in the music world was different, because it was one-on-one classes. So it was a different partnership, professor-student. But for me, it was hard to understand the Texas accent, even though I passed the TOEFL test, even though I thought I could hear BBC and understand everything perfect. I learned a lot of English from Friends, watching the show Friends. I loved Friends, even though I could understand Friends very well. I remember one of my, a friend of mine that I met in Vienna in Austria was studying at Baylor University with the same professor, Desiree. She was half Austrian and half Italian. And she arrived in the United States 6 months before me. And I guess she was more fluent in English, or in Texas, she could understand the accent and everything so much better. So I had to open a bank account, went to Bank of America, and I didn't understand a word that the lady was telling me, the banker. So my friend decided to translate. I speak Italian, so she was translating to me in Italian. I was speaking back to my friend in Italian. And so that's how I opened my first bank account. And can you imagine, I was in school. I had started my master's already. And but one of the professors was making a joke one time. I remember very clearly that he and everyone was laughing. He would make jokes all the time, but I guess he had noticed that I would never laugh at his jokes. And one time he called me out on that. He said, I guess it wasn't funny for you, or something like that. I said, well, can you repeat that? That joke, maybe I understand what you're saying, because I didn't know what he was talking about. So anyway, I made my way through that. It was an experience. It was a learning experience. I think it was a great experience looking back at it. It built me up to understand more the culture, the mentality, and, the American thinking, because I was a psychologist and I try to see their faces and try to figure things out by just, what they were trying to say just by looking at their face, even if I didn't understand all the words that they were talking about. So that's how it all started. But it was a very nice environment here at the Baylor University. Everyone was so welcoming and so helpful. So it was a fantastic experience. Then I had a manager. I applied for a manager before graduating. Joanna Stefan, back then with Prestige Classical, that managing company does not exist anymore. However, back then they had concert series at Carnegie Hall, Merkin Concert Hall, among other concerts that we would perform. It was a fantastic group of artists that I still keep in touch with. At the end of her career, Joanna kind of gave each one, like a mother gave each one of her artists a certain path. And for me, she always suggested that, you are that girl next door that, the American people think that you are part of them. However, you're European. So the Europeans think that you're part of them, part of their lives, their culture, their mentality. So she said you'd become a great face of a piano company, and you go on stage and you perform, and everyone didn't expect to hear what they heard, when you performed. So that's what she suggested, and we went through several companies, which one would be the best fit for me, and Mason and Hamlin was for sure the right choice. The oldest American piano company that. And their sister company was Piano Disc, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Piano Disc, but it's where you place a strip on the piano and where you put the CD. Now it's of course connected. Back then it was through you put the CD in the piano, and the piano starts playing by itself. The pedal starts moving. The artist is not there, but the keys are pressed and the music comes out. It changed, of course, with. When I became their artist, I was the first one to connect in the Blu-ray DVD, and the Blu-ray, or actually there is iPad IQ, Pretty and Smart, and then there was my picture there. That's what it was, IQ, iPad, Pretty and Smart, and I was the first one to bring, so basically the first artist to bring the technology that you connect through the iPad and the piano starts playing on its own, and wirelessly you connect to the TVs at the house, and you could see the artist performing and the keys being pressed in the piano. However, the artist wasn't there. So basically I performed the piece, and anyway, so that was it was a great experience working for them, a fantastic family-owned company that I have such respect, and we still are quite connected. And even though life has taken me into so many directions, and that I enjoy doing everything that I do right now. So yeah.
Wow, I mean that's just a wonderful journey. Going to a whole new world, and Texas does it again. They're just such a welcoming place. And like I said earlier, I think those genes from your family really passed down, especially the language part, because you obviously have nailed down the English language so well, and it's really remarkable. I do think that this journey that you've taken, going from Albania to Waco, Texas, in a whole new world, and the Texas accent really is a genuine American treasure. I can tell you that. I think all the Texans would appreciate that very much. I want to now turn a bit more about some of the initiatives that you are now a part of. One of the things that you've been able to do is that you've founded the Dallas Institute of Musical Advancement, based on your passion for music and your great talent. Share with us a little bit about this organization and what it means to you when you bring this organization out to countless families and kids, and others who really want to share that same passion of music that you had before.
So through my career, you grow and you evolve as life takes you. I always knew that I wanted to work on higher education level. I wanted to work at the university. For the first time that I stepped in at the Dallas Baptist University, I told myself I want to work in this university. Believe it or not, that was one of the reasons that I started my doctoral degree. And during the time that I was doing my DMA, Doctor of Music or Arts degree, I created a family. I had the first child, the second child, and I actually had my final dissertation while I was pregnant with my third one. And during this time, once that I had the third child, my book that was a dissertation was published, and my first book. But throughout all of this that I went through, of course, music being always a very important part, performing was so important. Even if I had children, I performed until I was 7 months pregnant with my first one, and the same thing with my second child. I slowed down a little bit with my third one because I was raised a certain way with a certain structure of work ethic. Of course, always build up with that love, but positive discipline. I wanted something else for my children, and that is how DFW Institute of Musical Advancement started. I wanted when I had my first child turned 3 years old, and I thought I need to find a program that actually it's a good fit for my first one, and moving on with my other children. And for some reason, I had a hard time figuring that out. So I said, okay, I'll start mine then, and that's how my music school started. So we started in 2018, and my oldest one had started taking lessons. I was pleased with his progress. However, it was not exactly what I wanted 100%. And that's how I started the school. Of course, I had friends that always asked me, Elida, can you teach my child? And so on. And even though the desire was to give that knowledge to the younger generation, I couldn't afford to time-wise, just because, kids finish school at a certain time at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And at that time, I want to spend with my children. I believe in that connecting with your children, being there for your children. So I couldn't work past 5 p.m. And I wanted that family time. So I decided to hire very well qualified teachers, guide them, train them to do exactly what I wanted to do with our students, with programs that I created myself. And I thought, why don't I take it to the next level? And we provide after-school programs into these schools. And I wanted to start with a school that my children were attending at that point. And I proposed to them. I said, what do you think of this idea? And of course, I talked to the head of the lower school. At the end, she said, well, I have to talk, we have to go through the headmaster. However, what I do feel very comfortable to say is that we're looking forward to adding that kind of class of the classical music to our school. And this school is one of the top lower, from age 3 to 10 schools in the United States. It's a private school. So that's how we started. And I started providing programs there. Of course, the parents were super excited, super happy for their child to be able to take lessons in the school. And my kids were taking lessons there as well. And yes, it grew very fast from that point. The next semester we added another school, and then we kept adding more schools, and it was all pretty much, I never did an advertisement, but the school kept growing. Then COVID hit, and my number one priority was to protect our I think I started this in 2018, August of 2018. And then COVID hit in 2020, and we went online. Our teachers were, of course, teaching online internationally, so it was not that hard for us, but it was hard psychologically for our students and for our, even for our teachers, because everyone was locked in their homes at this point. My school was one of the first ones to be able to start providing lessons in person. I took the decision that I'm going to spend financially to where our teachers are tested weekly. So they took the test at home, and they mailed the test out every week. And our parents felt safe, so we started providing lessons in home. And a lot of these parents were doctors that we were teaching their kids, so they're like, "We love this," They, uh, and so yes, it kept growing and growing. And just last semester, I couldn't believe it. I was actually in Europe, and the classes kept growing, the wait list, and we had to accommodate over 180 students within a month. So the school is growing, but that's how I started all this. We're connected to the Royal Conservatory of Music. We partner with them, and so our students take their exams as well, and so we see the progress if we want to. It's been very good. Knock on wood. I love it. It's my fourth child.
That's so wonderful, and its music is truly important in school and in that early education phase and learning and being able to think and to be creative. One thing that I haven't revealed to you and perhaps to my audience is that my mother is a piano teacher. And so,
oh, wonderful.
yes, that's right. So she started her own piano school. She did it for a number of years. She scaled back a bit to focus on some other things that she loves to do. But this whole it's just great, and I've supported her so much, especially with her initiatives to combine tea and music. It's just a wonderful combination, because who doesn't want to listen to amazing music with soothing tea?
It's a great idea. It's fantastic. I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely. It's just such a great initiative. I support my mother so much, and she really has taught me a lot about not just the importance of music, but just having that work ethic and all those amazing values.
That work ethic, music really provides. It makes you think outside of the box and makes you be creative. And it's amazing. That's why I'm a big believer in music. And to take it one step further, I'm a big believer in leadership, especially leadership through music, because you think outside of the box in music. You introduce yourself a certain way. It's very important to connect with the public or with the audience starting at a very young age, and that's what we try to do at our school. Connect with the audience and then perform. So show them that here I am telling you what this piece is all about, or what what I'm about to do right now, it's all about, and let me perform it right now, whether it's a duo, where it's a solo, or where it's a group performance, a chamber performance. So for me personally, that's very important, and that's something new that I have created. So yes, I love everything that I do.
That's just amazing, and I can't wait to learn more about your organization, and just I really appreciate so much of what you do with this incredible initiative. And I want to now turn to we have just a couple more questions for you. The final one, which is before we get to our kind of reflection phase, so to speak, is about really your work with the Victims of Communism Foundation, and really just in general, what would be your main message to those who want to learn more about the horrors of communism, to want to learn more about history and how history can teach the present and the future? What would be your message? And just to give a wraps around so many of the amazing stories that are still out there, like yours, that are being told and that are so useful for our understanding of how we can move forward in our society.
So it all started for me personally as Elida. I'm writing a book right now that reflects my life in communism, my parents' life, my great-grandparents' life. I'm very thankful to my husband that actually supports me in this idea, that said that you've got to share the story. You've got to, for your children, just for our children, for the future generations, that they should know where they came from and what happened to their grandparents and great grandparents. And of course, with my children, we educate them on this, about the the socialism, about the communism, about life and freedom and democracy. My idea to, or not the idea, but the feeling that I need to do something more. I'm very lucky. I consider myself very lucky, and I need to make sure. I was seeing what happened in Albania and what's still going on in Albania, but I felt that I didn't have the strength and the power to do something, and that should never be the case. Thinking back at it, why did I feel so little? I could do so much, right? If I don't do it, who is going to? So don't expect that someone else is going to do the job that you actually should do, or if you feel what you believe that the mission for in life for you is. So when I was pregnant with my third child, my father wrote his story, his book, wanted to write it for his grandchildren. And he asked me to translate it. I started reading it and I just cried and cried and cried from what I read. And I had to stop because I was pregnant and I didn't want that to take a turn on me. And once that I had the child, once that I had my daughter, I went back to the book and started translating. And it was so sad to read all, and so many things connected made sense. So I figured out so many things at this age, let's say 3 years ago. And that's when I decided that I will share my family story, both of my family story, in a book that so far has gone quite, I've written almost 3/4 of the book, and soon hopefully will have a life of its own. But this is how it all started. And I was very thankful because my publisher of my first book, Alexander Page, Albanian Music Before and After the Iron Curtain, had worked with the victims of communism of America, and he said, "I would like to introduce you to them. I think you'll find a lot that you can work with one another." And that was a fantastic way of connecting with this organization that I believe has done so much and doing so much in the fight against communism and socialism at the same time. And that is how it all started. An introductory email was sent, and they right away said, "We'd love for you to share your story, Elida, and perform as well." And when I went to DC and performed, it was a very touching experience on their end and mine as well. And because to see people, fighters, and people that had gone through, once that I performed, I had from the audience people coming saying that just different stories. I was able to escape from the dictatorship in Cuba. I'm now, I'm here free, but the rest of my family is there. I can talk to them. I can connect with them, and so on. It was very, very touching. At the same time, I was happy to share my words, my what I went through, but it is so sad to hear the stories of so many people that are going through it right now. And that motivated more to connect and collaborate with the VSC. And we decided to, at some point, VSC suggested that, how do you feel about becoming the ambassador of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation in Dallas, the Dallas branch? And this was something that, of course, I was more than happy to take over and give my all I could in order to educate the younger generation with the danger that socialism and communism brings. And there's so much to it that I cannot explain in an interview, but there's so much to be done because, unfortunately, socialism is turning into a trend right now. Excuse me. It's turning to a trend that it's unfortunate, and it's a false ideology that they are presenting right now. And the younger generation should know about this. The high schools should know. Even middle schools should know the truth of what's going on and what's happening right now in America and all over the world.
Well, what you do is so important to the fabric of our civic society, Elida, because when we hear these stories, when Americans hear stories, and they love stories, people love stories. When they hear those stories like yours and those of people who literally experienced communism, that I think is such an inspirational motivator for not just people all across the nation who wish to listen, but I think it's going to be really important for those who want to be public servants, who want to serve the United States, and to keep these stories in mind and these lessons in mind. I cannot commend you enough for what you're doing for the victims of communism, and just sharing your stories to countless audiences. And with your book, I look forward to purchasing it and reading it, because I think it's going to be a wonderful read. And we'll look back at this episode, and it's going to just going to be I think it's going to be a wonderful piece, a wonderful gift for so many audiences, both young and old. I want to now turn to our final question before we wrap it up, and that is, with this podcast, Friends and Fellow Citizens, I've outlined 6 ideas or principles that Washington laid out in his farewell address of 1796. He covers patriotism, faith, national unity, education, fiscal responsibility, and civility, amongst some others as well. Out of those 6, which one or which ones do you think are particularly relevant when it comes to your advocacy work, but also really your story about going from communist Albania to the United States of America?
I think all of them are very important and very well connected to one another. One thing that we have missed in my country during communism was faith. And I do believe in God. I do believe, to me, it's not important whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, Orthodox, I don't know, but any religion, it's that you believe. You have that strength that you are allowed to believe. In Albania, you are not allowed to believe in God. And that is something that I think faith is very important. Having that unity is extremely important. And education is what builds you up for the future. It's what builds the next generation. As a parent, I want to be well educated, well informed, to provide the best possible information to my child. And I am doing the same with my children, educating them in the way that they pass on to their children, this kind of the education and being, united at the same time. And civilization is extremely important. All of this are part of the democratic life. None of this existed in communism. Faith, education, you were not allowed to get that. Not everyone was allowed to have it. Civilization, you couldn't have that either. So a strong country is built in all of these. And we're very thankful to still have those in America. And there's not much we can go. There's not much further that you can go from here, from United States of America. I think this is it. This is the country that provides pretty much all of them, and we need to make sure that this is we hold tight to all of these principles.
Absolutely. Very well said, Elida. Elida, thank you so much for a wonderful interview. I just want to wrap it up real quick before. First of all, I will be sure to link the links you've sent me or refer to me down the show notes below, including a couple of articles that you wrote. And I highly encourage people to check those out and to read more about her and about what she's writing. But Elida, I just want to say one quick thing before we wrap it up, which is I cannot emphasize how grateful I am to you, because you clearly are very busy with all these amazing initiatives. You have worked so hard. You have such a history of not just living through what is hell on earth from what I've heard and from what I think people have heard, but also the values that your family has instilled in you. And I just can't imagine. I can imagine your family members seeing where you are today, looking at how successful you are, And not to mention all the advocacy work that you're doing to speak to all kinds of audiences, both the younger generation, older generations. I think that we can all bond around these stories and these values in which you espouse. And I'm so touched by what you say. I'm sitting here listening to your stories, and I can't even begin to imagine. I was born and raised here in the States. I know that on my mother's side, and my grandfather didn't own shoes until he was 6 years old. So I love hearing stories about other people who've witnessed the horrors of, I say humanity, but honestly, there wasn't much humanity, and there's no humanity in communism. There's just power, and there's just greed, and all the uglies of civilization, or the lack of it. And I just want to thank you so much, because this is such a wonderful opportunity, and I cannot wait to look out for your book. I'm going to update my Amazon.com account and get ready for that, because I am so grateful, and please keep up all the work that you're doing, because this is so important for not just for this generation, but for future generations as well.
And I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity and the voice to speak. At the same time, congratulations in everything that you are doing. And I certainly would like to say, keep it up as well. And I look forward to hearing your podcast and more, to hear so much more from you.
Wow, what an incredible story. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this interview with Dr. Elida Dakoli. She really is an inspiration, and I'm very grateful to all of you for joining us in this exclusive 2-part interview episode. Make sure to check out the links down in the show notes below. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our email list to get the latest news and notifications about Friends and Fellow Citizens. Have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the rest of your week. And remember, a day in America always gets better when we are with our friends and fellow citizens.